Is it just words that just flow off your lips, or what does it mean? You don't even know what you're saying. Pentecost is, in Greek, it's 50 count. Penti is 50, Costo is count. 50 count. What you're saying is 50 count. 50 count from what? 50 count from what? Well, when do I start counting 50? I mean, ask a Pentecostal. They're so spiritually led that they can't see truth. That's troubling. That's troubling. When you can be so spiritually led, you can't see truth. That's like you hear some people say their heads are so much in heaven, they're so saintly and so high up in heaven, they ain't no earthly good. You can't do nothing on earth because you living in heaven. It's very evident, Exodus 12:2, and going through this chapter here, is as important to you as Acts 2:38. It is as important to you as Acts 2:38. Some people say that the only scripture I know is Acts 2:38, and that's all I have to know. Not exactly. Not exactly. Because if we want to move up to that level where he's preparing us to go, if you want to move up to that level there, you got to look at the entirety of the book. And there's a lot of things that's written and spoken in this book. It's difficult to understand. There's secrets in the book. There's mysteries in the book. It takes the Ruach, or the Spirit, to break this up and to teach it to where you can understand it. It's the Ruach that does it. He says, I'm going to give you shepherds, or Rahas, who are going to feed you with knowledge and understanding. But it takes the Ruach, or the Spirit, to unlock that knowledge and understanding that you get. I can lead you to the water. I can't make none of y'all drink. I can't make none of y'all drink. It's up to you. When knowledge and wisdom comes, he even says that, I believe, in the 2nd chapter of Proverbs, because we read a proverb a day. There's 31 proverbs, and we read a proverb a day. So today, everybody should have read Proverbs 6. Tomorrow, we're going to read Proverbs 7, then Proverbs 8. Everybody just read a proverb a day. My birth date is on the 8th, so I look at Proverbs 8, that chapter, as my chapter. It's a proverb that's written to me because it's the 8th proverb, and I was born on the 8th day of the month. But that's just something that I do. Everybody can look at it, whatever day you was born on, and read that proverb. I'm sure there's something that will minister to you in that proverb. But I want to talk to you, Brother Nathan. Let's go to 1 Corinthians chapter 5 and verse 7. And I'm going to read 7, 8, and 9. This is or 7 and 8. 1 Corinthians 5, 7, and 8 is what I'm going to read. But I want us to understand something, because the school of Rome has just taken us completely off of the target, completely off target, and has replaced it with pagan practices. And our Messiah said, just like Jonah was 3 days and 3 nights in the heart of the earth, so shall I be 3 days and 3 nights. Or, I'm sorry. He said, just as Jonah was 3 days and 3 nights in the belly of the fish, so shall I be 3 days and 3 nights in the heart of the earth. He said, that's the only sign I'm going to give you. He said, a wicked and adulterous generation seeketh after a sign. And ain't no sign going to be given you. This time of year is the sign that he gave to us, that he is who he says he is, and that everything that was written about him beforehand, all of that's going to come to pass. This time of year signifies that. It ushers in that. He is the oath that the Most High gave us to where we can lock in and secure everything that's written in this book. Our Messiah said, heaven and earth is going to pass away, but what's not going to pass away? He said, my word ain't passing away. Heaven and earth is going to pass away. And you have people right now over in some parts of the world, they think the earth is passing away. All they see is bombs and destruction. And you talk to them folks, they think it's the end of the world. This earth is passing away. Over here, we're pretty comfortable. We're pretty comfortable. We still have in a lot of our teaching, a lot of catchphrases, and you're going to get rich by the end of the year. You sow some seed here. You sow some money and put so much money in, and you're going to get this kind of blessing. And we're so caught up into that we're missing something. We're missing something that is extremely important to us. So I want to read this. Purge out therefore the old leaven, that ye may be a new lump, as ye are unleavened. For even Mashiach, our Passover, Yahushua Mashiach is our Passover. And what was he? Sacrificed for us. Therefore, let us keep the feast. So I want us to, and Brother Nathan, if you can kind of go on Google, or let me share my screen here for a second. And I want to show you, Brother Nathan, I just want to show the class something. This is called what is the law of first mention? What is the law of first mention? And if we could just put this up here where everybody can see it. What is the law of first mention? Now, I don't know if anybody has heard of that, the law of first mention. So can y'all see this? You can't see that? Do I need to blow it up some? Make it a little bigger? Okay, I'll have to read it, and, well, let's see if we can get it within the screen. Is that better? Can y'all see that? Is that better? Can you see it? It's kind of small. So let me read it. I'll read it for you. Okay. The law of first mention, which anytime you get into the Bible and you're studying Bible, this is good for anybody, especially those who are going to do any teaching. Now, Shaul told Timothy, study to show yourself approved unto Elohim. Study to show yourself approved unto Elohim, a workman that needeth not to be ashamed. But what are you going to do? Rightly divide the word of truth. Rightly divide the word of truth. So what is the law of first mention? So the law or principle or rule of first mention is a guideline that some people use for studying scripture. So if you want to study scripture, it is a book that is locked or sealed. He even told Daniel, he says, seal it up. It's going to be sealed until the last days. I don't care how many times you read it, you ain't going to get an understanding because it's sealed. You have people read Revelation, read the prophets and everything. I can't understand it. A lot of it is sealed. It takes the Ruach to unlock things. So, anytime you read, especially with Shaul's writing, the New Testament, even our Messiah, even though our Messiah was an exception, and we know he was an exception, and maybe I just want to give you a quick example of that tonight, how he is an exception to that. But anybody that's studying the scriptures, what is going to help you to understand what is written is the law first mentioned. And you can use this law. We're going to use it tonight for Passover. But you can use this law for Shabbat. You can use this law for marriages. You can use this law for divorce or adultery. You can use this law for a lot of topics: idolatry, commandments, teachings, law. The law of first mention is going to give you a highlight and help you understand that. Okay, so the law of first mention says this. This is what it says. To understand a particular word or doctrine. For anybody to go to the New Testament to build doctrine is in error. You cannot build doctrine on New Testament only. And that's where a lot of people get off. The school of Rome has told you, do away with the Old Testament. Why y'all reading the Old Testament? Do away with that. You don't need that. We want you to forget about history and all that. You don't need that. So when they convince you of that, now they can replace, they can actually put in amendments and replacement and the replacement theory and even the Antichrist. So listen, to understand a particular word or doctrine, we must find what? First place in Scripture that the word or doctrine is what? Is revealed, and study that passage. This is the law first mentioned. Study that passage. The reasoning is that the Bible's first mention of a concept is the simplest and clearest presentation. So anytime you get a little confused about something, I'm reading something about Paul, I'm reading something in the book of Acts, I'm reading something, I don't quite understand it. The clearest and most simplest thing is go to the first mention. When was the first time it was mentioned? Because when he gives you the first mention of it, it's the clearest and the simplest way to understand that precept or that concept. Doctrines are then more fully developed on that foundation. Now, anybody who studies Scripture ought to know, I've got to have 2 or 3 witnesses. You can't build a church doctrine without 2 or 3 witnesses. That's illegal. How many times you sit in a Bible class and you don't get 2 or 3 witnesses and they're building doctrine? That's illegal according to our book. Every word must be established by 2 or 3 witnesses. It's so true that our Messiah says, my Father and I. Now, you can't get no greater witnesses than that. You can't get 2 greater witnesses than Abba Yah and his son. That's true. Doctrines are then more fully developed on that foundation. So, to fully understand an important, complex theological concept, Bible students are advised to start with its first mention. First mention. So that's the law of first mention. So anything that is complex and important, theological concepts, you better go to the first mention. You can use that even with dietary, because the church is full of the misconcept of dietary laws. They're full of it. The number 1 killer is heart disease. How come nobody talks about that? Number 1 killer is heart disease. Well, what causes heart disease? Well, you better watch your diet. But what kind of diet should I keep? But in churches, you'll hear, you can eat anything. And that's not true. If you don't understand, Acts, a good example is Acts chapter 10, or Paul when he's talking to Timothy. And you don't understand Acts chapter 10 where you have the sheets coming down, and you don't understand why Peter says, I ain't had nothing unclean. Go to the law of first mention, and understand what Peter was talking about. Use the law of first mention. So you can use this for dietary. You can use it for any kind of complex theological complexes to try to unlock something. The simplest thing and the clearest thing is to go, okay, when was the first time he talked about this? Let me go back to the first time he talked about it, and then that'll be very simple and the clearest way for my presentation. Okay, Brother Nathan, I'm gonna let you have it again. Go ahead and take it. So we were in 1 Corinthians, and he says, purge out therefore the old leaven, that ye may be a new lump, as ye are unleavened, for even Mashiach, our Passover. Is this the first time it talks about Passover? What if you have a student, or let's say you have somebody that is just now born of water and spirit. They're coming in here, they ask you, what is he talking about here? What are we dealing with here? Oh, let me tell you about Passover. Let me tell you about the Passover. So you know what I'm dealing with here. So let's go to Exodus chapter 12. Exodus chapter 12, and we started at verse number 2, but I want to go down to verse number 11. Exodus 12, verse number 11. And thus ye shall eat it, your loins girded, your shoes on your feet, and your staff in your hand, and ye shall eat it in its haste. It is Yahuwah's Passover. The very first time that Passover is mentioned in Scripture is right here. Very first time. So what is he talking about here? If Shaul is telling the Corinthians, because in the next verse, in 1 Corinthians chapter 5, verse 8, he says, therefore what? Keep the feast. What is he talking about? I have no idea of what he's talking about. Well, you better go back to the first mention and get an understanding of what he's saying. So what was Yahuwah's Passover? When it says you shall eat it in haste, what was his Passover? Well, it was the lamb. The lamb is talking about the lamb, and ye shall eat it is talking about the lamb. You hear a lot about the lamb slain from the foundation of the world. You hear a lot about, so at this time of year, we're talking about Yahuwah's Passover, his lamb. Now, Shaul told us that lamb was who? Mashiach. He says that lamb that they're talking about in the Passover, that's our Messiah. So what was this all about here? When he says this is Yahuwah's Passover, what had to happen with that lamb? Well, the lamb had to be inspected, right? It had to pass inspection. It had to be a male of the first year. There was stipulations put on it. He gave us his only begotten son, which so many of us take so lightly. There's a day coming where a number of people are going to wish they had their time back. They're going to wish they could go back and redo some things. You're going to have a lot of people, when he returns, you're going to have a lot of people, because he's going to open up our understanding, you're going to have a lot of people regretting a lot of things. You're going to have a lot of people saying, I didn't know, I didn't understand, I didn't realize that. I wasn't taught that. You're going to have a lot of people who have not taken this seriously. The self-inspection and the self-examination. This lamb had to be examined. He was without blemish. So he gives us an opportunity to self-reflect And it's only done once a year. Now, I know a lot of people in the school of Rome, hey, you can do it every week if you want to. That's not true. That's not true. When he shares with us in 1 Corinthians 5 and 1 Corinthians 11 as our Passover, how many times did they have the Passover? Well, I mean, yeah, kind of. They celebrated it once a year. It was something that was supposed to be kept once a year. He did make one exception. I think it's in the book of Numbers. I think it is. He says, if you're not able to keep the first Passover, you get 30 days to where you can keep the second Passover in 30 days. And if you miss that one, yeah, you're just out. You're just out. So you can't say he doesn't have mercy. So it's Yahuwah's Passover. He says, I will pass through the land of Egypt this night, and I will smite all the firstborn in the land of Egypt, both man and beast, and against all the gods of Egypt I will exercise judgment. So Yahuwah's Passover, what comes with his Passover? What comes with his Passover? I'm going to execute judgment. I'm going to execute judgment. That's why he says, let a man first examine himself, and so let him eat. Because if you do it unworthily, what do you bring? Damnation to you. Because he says, I'm going to execute judgment. This time of year, we're looking at some judgments coming. So his Passover, he's going to execute judgment. The blood shall be to you for a token upon the houses where you are. And when I see the blood, I'm going to pass over you. The blood of the Lamb. The blood of the Lamb. So in our inspection, and we're supposed to examine ourselves to see if we're even in the faith. If you have somebody that's not even sure they're in the faith, you have somebody doubting, somebody that's unbelieving. He said, the fearful and the unbelieving, I'm not going to inherit. So you got some that don't. Y'all believe in that? I don't believe in that. That's all right. If that's your choice, as long as you know that when his Passover, Yahuwah's Passover, I'm going to execute judgment. That's why he tells us, judge yourself. Didn't he say that in 1 Corinthians chapter 11? He says, judge yourself, lest ye be what? Lest ye be judged. Judge yourself, lest ye be judged. Because when he executes judgment, even in the 11th chapter of 1 Corinthians, he talks about if we don't judge ourselves, then we're going to be judged. Because his Passover deals with judgment. It deals with judgment. So you got folks, how do you think he's going to judge people who practice paganism? How do you think he feels about something that's so serious, and we keep reading here, something so serious to him, and you replace it with an Easter bunny? Eggs. And you know what? He just sent a bird flu. You know, they're killing millions and millions of chickens. Did y'all know that? They're killing millions of chickens. And they said the price of eggs is it's going up. And folks are thinking, oh no, right at the time of the Easter egg hunt, the cost of eggs is going up. He's going to execute judgment. So y'all keep fooling around playing with that. You keep fooling around with Good Friday and Easter Sunday, or what they changed it. I don't want to call it Easter Sunday. I don't want to call it EASTER anymore. I want to call it Resurrection Sunday. So you got Good Friday and Resurrection Sunday, which is the same thing. Same thing. We're going to look at his Passover. Okay, let's go up. Verse 14. Notice now, he says, and this day shall be unto you for a memorial. And ye shall keep it a feast. Isn't that what Shaul said? Therefore keep the feast. Shall be a memorial, which is something that we remember. You have people who will memorialize all kind of things, but won't do this. Won't do that. The church don't even teach you this. How can I memorialize this and the church don't teach it? Church don't teach me to moralize this. And ye shall keep it a feast to Yahuwah throughout your generations. Ye shall keep it a feast by ordinance for how long? Forever. Uh-oh. The law first mentioned. So if I want to understand what Passover is, because Paul is telling the Corinthians, you got to keep this feast. If I want to understand what it is, I better go back to the first mention, because it's going to be the simplest explanation is when he first gives it. Very simple. I'm to memorialize this day. I should know this is the new year. I should know it. I know that when the new year comes, I got 14 days. And I've got preparation. That's the preparation period. It even talks about it in the book of Acts, I believe it is, and in St. John or Yahuchanan and some of the other, it was the preparation time. They were preparing for unleavened bread. So let's look at that. 7 days ye shall eat unleavened bread. Even the first day ye shall put away leaven out of your houses. For whosoever eateth leavened bread from the first day until the seventh day, that soul shall be cut off from Yasharah. And he said, ye worship, ye know not what. We know what we worship, for salvation is of the Yahudim or Yasharah. That's where salvation's at. So 7 days, actually it's 8 days. As we read down here, you'll see that the 14th day, they were supposed to eat unleavened bread. And the 14th day was the day of the lamb, when you actually eat the lamb. They were supposed to eat the lamb. And then with the lamb, you have unleavened bread. So we've been preparing ourselves leading up to this. We've been preparing ourselves because he doesn't want any leaven. Now, anytime you talk about leaven, what do you think of? Well, we'll get to that. We'll get to that. Verse 16. And in the first day there shall be a holy convocation, which is the Passover, and then you have the first day of unleavened bread. So we already talked about a holy convocation. A holy convocation is when all of Yasharah is supposed to come together. Didn't we? I don't want to have to keep breaking that down because we know what a holy convocation. A holy convocation is when you assemble. And then in Hebrews 10:25, didn't he say, forsake not the assembling of yourselves as what? The manner of some is. And he wasn't talking about going to church Tuesday through Sunday. That's not what he's talking about. He's talking to Hebrews. So when did Hebrews assemble? On the Shabbat. They would assemble on the Shabbat, and then when else would they assemble? So when he said, forsake not the assembling, don't give this up like other folks are doing. Well, I haven't been taught that. Nobody told me that. And the seventh day shall be a holy convocation unto you. So the first day of unleavened bread and the seventh day of unleavened bread is a holy convocation. We're coming up on the 14th day of this new year. We are in 1, 2, 3, 4. This is the 5th day of the new year today. is the 5th day of the new year. We're counting 14 days. The 14th day, as we're counting, there's going to be Passover here at the assembly, this assembly, Passover here. We've got ministers that'll be here. And I'm hoping the sisters get things together. People got lamb? Has anybody got lamb yet? Because you might not be able to get it in the stores. Lamb, bitter herbs, and unleavened bread. Unleavened bread. And you can make unleavened bread with just flour, oil, salt, and I think water. And then put them over a burner or something and put a little tan on it. Bake it just a little bit. Or not really bake it, but just kind of fry it. Put it on fire or something and you have your unleavened bread. And let's see what he says. No manner of work shall be done in them, save that which man must eat, that only may be done to you. And ye shall observe, listen to verse 17. Can you scroll it up, Brother Nathan, verse 17? And ye shall observe unleavened, feast of bread, unleavened bread, for in this selfsame day have I brought your armies out of the land of Egypt. Therefore shall ye observe this day in your generations by an ordinance. For how long? Twice now. Twice he says it. Twice. So did they forget about this in the time of the Messiah? No, they kept it. They kept it. Did they forget about this after his resurrection? Oh no, they kept it. So when did we get away from that? So the school of Rome comes in and says, you guys don't have to keep that. You guys ain't under that. You know what the school of Rome will say? Oh, that's of Israel. They'll keep that, but you guys don't have to keep it. The CHURCH has replaced Israel, and we don't have to keep that. This book didn't teach you that. This book didn't teach you that. The school of Rome taught you that. So this is supposed to be done forever. Notice now, verse 18, in the first month, and it's not January, on the 14th day of the month at even, ye shall eat unleavened bread. So when is the 14th day? What's the 14th day of the new year? The 14th day. Huh? No, what is he talking about here? On the 14th day, it's the Passover. The 14th day at even is the Passover. Ye shall eat unleavened bread, notice now, until the 21st day of the month at even. So how many days is that? Well, count. 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21. How many days is that? Until the 1 and 20th, 21. So that's actually 8 days, right? Because on the 14th day, or Passover, when you have your Passover lamb, you have unleavened bread. And then you eat unleavened bread to the 21st. At your meal, at sundown, when you have your meal, you eat your unleavened bread for 7 days. Now, 7 days there shall be no leaven found in your houses, for whosoever eateth that which is leavened. So in that 7-day period, if you have leaven in your house and you eat leavened bread in your house, what happens? Well, they should be cut off from the congregation of Yasharal, whether they be a stranger or born in the land. Ye shall eat nothing leavened in all your habitations. Shall ye eat unleavened bread. This is not just for what we call the Old Testament, because they were doing this in the book of Acts. This was after the resurrection. This is not a new doctrine. This is something that has been given to Israel about, 3,000, 3,500 years ago? There's another verse I want to get in this same chapter. I want to go down to verse number 24. And ye shall observe this thing for an ordinance to thee and thy sons until Christ comes, till the Mashiach comes. Or just do this until after the first century saints, after they go off the scene and then Rome takes over, then it ends. This is the third time. This is the third time he says forever. Just in case you have preachers that says, oh, you don't have to do that anymore. Well, he says it 1, 2, 3. You get the hint yet? I mean, is it landing on anybody yet that what he says here is pretty serious? If he says it 3 times, okay. Now, I want to go down to verse number 42. It is a night to be much observed unto Yahuwah for bringing them out from the land of Egypt. This is that night of Yahuwah to be observed of all the children of Yasharah in their generations. As long as you have Yasharah, this is supposed to be memorialized. It's supposed to be remembered. That's why Shaul, now let's go back to 1 Corinthians chapter 5. 1 Corinthians chapter 5. 1 Corinthians chapter 5 and verse number 7. That's why he tells him here, for even Mashiach, our Passover is sacrificed for us. He goes on to say, therefore let us keep the feast, because Shaul knew. He knew this was something that was supposed to go throughout the generations forever. What we are looking at now as Christ, Mashiach being our Passover, he's about to deliver us. At the time of the first Passover, Israel was in captivity. They were in bondage. Israel is in bondage now. And our Passover, it's not a lamb like it was for them at the first. And they celebrated this all the way up till when he came. Then he was a sacrificial lamb who died on the Passover. And that year where they celebrated the Passover, the 14th day of Abib, that year, it fell in midweek. It fell in midweek. The prophecy was that the sacrifice will be ceased, or the sacrifice shall end midweek. That's in Daniel. So he was a Passover midweek. He said 3 days and 3 nights will I be. Do you know why? You know, that's why they have, whenever you think of Bible class, what day of the week do you think of? Anytime you think of Bible class, we got Bible class tonight. Oh, it must be Wednesday. Because Wednesday and Bible class lines up, at least in our traditions. Wednesday and Bible class lines up because that's when the sacrifice was given. Our Passover, he died midweek. He said 3 days and 3 nights I'll be in the heart of the earth. You go from midweek. So you've got the Passover. You've got, which would be midweek, which was day 1, 2, 3, 4. Day 4. Day 4. So you got that night. So the night would always precede the day. So you have that night. That's why they had to take him down off the cross and bury him, because night was coming. And you had, they said you had, actually there's 2 Shabbats or what they call a Shabbat, and then you have the actual Shabbat. So what was called a Shabbat? You say there's three? What was it? Well, the Passover was a Shabbat. Then the first day of the month was, or the first day of the Feast of Unleavened Bread was like a holy convocation. It was a Shabbat. And then you had the actual Shabbat. So you had like three days there. So you got Wednesday night, Thursday night, Friday night. That's 3. You got Thursday day, Friday day, and Saturday day. That's 3. So he was up out of the grave on the Shabbat. If you look at Wednesday night, Thursday night, Friday night, those are the 3 nights. Thursday day, Friday day, Saturday, that's the 3 days. He was up on the Shabbat. He got up. So when Mary, it says in John, Yahuchanan, it was yet dark. It was just the crack of dawn. She went to the tomb, which was the first day of the week, but he was gone. He was already gone. So he didn't rise on the first day of the week. He rose on the Shabbat. Now, the School of Rome will tell you, well, he rose on the first day of the week. That's why we have our services on the first day of the week. No, he didn't. Because when she got there, he was gone. That's in the book. So he says, let us therefore keep the feast now, not with leaven or the old leaven, and he compares this leaven of malice and wickedness. So as we look to taking or keeping the feast and taking of the body or taking of the lamb, and that lamb is our Messiah, but there's some preparation that we have to do, and that's what we've been talking about, is getting this preparation in so that I will be worthy when I take of that lamb and I take of that unleavened bread. The lamb was our Messiah that was slain. The unleavened bread, when you look at the unleavened, and they even had unleavened bread with the lamb, that's because he had no sin. There was no sin in him. It's not that he had to take out leaven, because he never knew no sin. He was already obedient, always obedient. So he never knew no sin. So it wasn't that he had to take out the leaven, but what do we have to do? We have to examine ourselves to see if we have any leaven, and we're supposed to get rid of that leaven. Some of it is old, because some things you still holding on to. It's old leaven. You've been holding on to that all your saved life. Still ain't let it go. This leaven here, as soon as we think about leaven, we think about sin. Is that right? Because we do an examination. Physically, we get rid of all the leaven out of our house because we don't want to be tempted. I don't want to use no leaven. I got to get rid of and y'all know I like to eat bread. Now, I've cut back because I'm trying to he says, I would that you would prosper and be in health, even as your soul prosper. So as I'm prospering spiritually and my soul is prospering, then I have to prosper health-wise. And I know I can't consume bread every day like I used to, every day, and still be prospering physically and my health. So I had to give up bread. That was hard. That was hard. I love my bread. But I know I can't eat it every day. It's not good for me. There's other things that we put in our diet that's just not good for us, that we have to get out of our diet. Here he's talking about sin, and we think of leaven as sin. The only one that I see, and that's our Messiah, Yahushua Mashiach, who the world calls Jesus Christ. He is the only one that can use leaven as an example for something good. He's the only one. And we'll look at that now, then we're going to come back here. But Matthew 13 and verse 33. Matthew 13 and verse 33. This is our Messiah, Yahushua Mashiach. And another parable spake he unto them, the kingdom of Shamaim is like unto what? You mean the kingdom of Shamaim? And we're praying that the kingdom of Shamaim come? We're waiting for his kingdom to come? It ain't set up. His kingdom ain't here. Where's it at? Some people say, well, it's in you. The kingdom's supposed to be in you. Well, you better not have no sin in you. The kingdom is supposed to be in us. It is. That's what the book says. But you ain't in no kingdom you sinning. Don't get confused. Think you can sin and the kingdom's in me. How are you going to have the kingdom in you and sin? You fooling your own self. So he is the only one that can use leaven as an example. So now we know if you understand leaven or yeast, all you had to do is put a little bit, just a pinch, into that flour, and what's going to happen? It's going to work. It's going to rise. And that's why Shaul says a little leaven will leaven the whole lump. All you need is a little pinch of that yeast, a little pinch of that leaven, it's going to leaven the whole lump. And Shaul was using that as an example. You have somebody in the congregation that's a fornicator and is doing things that shouldn't even be mentioned. And Shaul says, you ought to give him over to Satan. But instead, you're still embracing him. Now, you got folks in the congregation, fornicators. Well, let's pray for them. Well, stop. Get out and stop, then come back. That's what Shaul was saying. Shaul was saying because that sin, that leaven, if you allow that to rest and stay in amongst the congregation, what's going to happen? A little leaven's going to do what? They're going to leaven the whole lot. Because you got other folks looking at, well, he's a fornicator. He's still preaching. He's a fornicator. He's still a deacon. He's a fornicator or she's a fornicator. They're still singing in the choir. So Shaul is saying that little leaven, that'll go all throughout the whole congregation. Because you'll have others thinking, well, they're a leader and they're doing it. Don't say nothing when I do it. Because they say that in the church. Don't you say nothing when I do it, because look, you got him up there. Shaul said, you need to read 1 Corinthians chapter 5. He says, I would that you put him out. That's difficult for us because sometimes it's from the top down. Because don't think those folks at the top ain't doing what those people doing in laity. We like to think that, but you'd be surprised of what's going on. You'd be surprised. So he says a little leaven now, all you need is one. You got a whole congregation here. All you need is one that's a fornicator and you embrace them and that'll spread. A little leaven is going to leaven the whole lump. Now our Messiah is using leaven now as an example. That's what this is. He's using it as an example. He says, the kingdom of heaven is like unto leaven. He didn't say the kingdom of Shamaim is leaven. See that? He says it's like. Our Messiah knew what leaven was. He knew what leaven, he got on them. He said with the disciples, he said, be careful of the leaven of the scribes and the Pharisees. And what did they say? They got upset. Oh man, he must be upset at us because we didn't bring no bread. Because that's what they thought. So leaven is associated with bread and the rising of bread. Now he says, let me give you an example. The kingdom of Shamaim is like unto leaven. And then he goes on to explain how it's like unto leaven. So what did the woman do? She took the leaven and hid it in 3 measures of meal until what? So the kingdom of heaven is like unto yeast. All you need is a little bit. just a little bit, just a pinch of the kingdom of heaven, it'll take over. It'll take over. You can just have a little bit in your house, and that little bit in your house can take over the whole house. You might have one person. You can put one person in the house that has the kingdom of Shamaim, the kingdom of heaven in them, and it'll take over that whole house. It'll take. What does darkness have to do when light shows up? Darkness has to go. As soon as light steps into the room, darkness has to go. Our problem is nobody's that bold anymore. Nobody has that power anymore. And it's not a lot of power. It's not a lot. It's just, like he says, it's like unto leaven. I'm giving you an example. What did he say about faith? He says, if you have faith, the grain of a mustard seed, what would you be able to do? Move mountains. That's like this is. It's just a little bit. But if you let that little bit do its work, it'll take over the whole thing. We also see it in the book of Acts. When they said, I think it's the 5th chapter, and they said, we told y'all not to preach in that name. And they even said, you're going to turn this whole city. They talked about, I think they counseled amongst themselves, and they said, if we let these men go, they're going to have the whole city following after them. A little leaven will take over. He's not saying the kingdom is leaven, but he says look at what leaven does. Look at the power of leaven. Just look at the power of yeast, just a pinch. Even when you make bread, you don't need a lot of yeast. Just a little pinch. And before you know it, that bread then blew up. He said, that's a good example. Hey, the kingdom of heaven is like that. You got us here, just us here, can turn this whole city upside down. Because that's what the kingdom of heaven is like. She hid it in 3 measures of milk because it don't take a lot. You don't see, when you put yeast or that leaven in the flour and the meal and stuff, you don't see it. You can't see. Somebody might have asked, did you put yeast in there? Oh, give it a minute. You'll find out. Because you watch it, it'll just start growing. Oh, yeah. How much then if it overflows the pan and start coming out of the, out of the oven and all that, how much yeast did you put in there? You was only supposed to put in a pinch. Oh, I thought it was a half a cup. No, I mean, it's all over. You got to get a new oven. Because it don't take much. It's just a little. And this is the example he's given. It don't take a lot. But if you use it, you'll get the results of it. It's going to take over. Because when he comes back and sets up his kingdom, he's taken over the world. He's taken over the whole world. All these other nations are going to have to bow to our Messiah. It even says, every knee shall bow. Every tongue shall confess. He said, not only on earth, but up in heaven. Everybody. So when he comes, he's taken over. He's taken over. His kingdom is going to be worldwide. He's taken over, and the world knows it. Some of the leaders of the world, they know it's coming. They know it's coming. People are starting to wake up to it. It's coming. Galatians chapter 5 and verse number, let's start with verse 19. Galatians 5. So this is what we have to examine ourselves, whether we're in the faith. We have to check to see if there's any leaven in us. Do I have, because all it takes is a little. It only takes a little bit of this. In the 5th chapter of 1 Corinthians, it was just one person. Now, isn't it true if you have one bad apple and it rots in a bag of other apples that are good, what happens? All the other ones start rotting away. And that's what he's saying here. Y'all better get rid of him. Get rid of that fornicator until he repents. And then in the second Corinthians, we see where he repented. Because he talks about that godly sorrow worketh repentance. He says it brought much carefulness out of you. Oh, I'm more careful now. Why do you think he was more careful? He didn't want to get put out. He said, whoa, man, I got to watch what I'm doing. I don't want to get put out. We read in Exodus, it says if you don't do it, you're cut off. People don't realize that. You mean I can lose out? Yes. A little leaven, you can lose out. All that stuff don't go. This stuff here, you don't think you can do this stuff and stay in Yasharal, stay in his bride. His bride, and we say the bride is a C-H-U-R-C-H, but that was added. His bride is Yasharal when you read the Old Testament. He's coming back for Yasharal as his bride. Everybody in Yasharal will be a part of his bride. And he ain't coming back after a bride. This is what happened before. Israel played the role of a harlot and committed adultery against the Most High. He divorced them. So you think he's going to allow that now? Oh, I got rid of a whole nation because of this. Oh, but you can do it. Oh, no, you can't. I heard somebody says, well, if you put everybody who's sinning in the church, if you put them out of the church, there ain't going to be no church. Well, it might be time to shout hallelujah then. Because if you want to be in, you got to be right. If you want to be in, you got to be right. He don't even put up with liars. I ain't putting up with y'all liars. Adultery, fornication. I mean, this is pretty serious here. We read in on the Shabbat day where confession and forsaking is under the law. We read that, Numbers 5 and 7. You got to confess and put it away. So any church that teaches confession, you got that from the law. Go back to the first mention. Let's use the law of first mention. Let's use the law of first mention and find out that if we use the law of first mention on all of these, do you know where we'll find them all? In Torah. We'll find them all in the Old Testament. Every single one of them. We'll find them all. So it's manifest. The works of the flesh is manifest, and this is what it is, adultery. So as you do your examination, are you committed? Now, in the Old Testament, you go back to the first mention here, when they committed adultery, what happened? They were stoned. There was no sin offering. You go to Leviticus and start to read those sin offerings, they'll tell you what the sin offerings were for sin. There was not a sin offering for adultery. I mean, and you got some churches that's full of it. You think that's right? Oh, I don't think so. You could think it's right. Oh, but you should hear their choir. Oh, man, the church is jumping. First day of the week. That's one thing you're going to give up. When he comes with his kingdom, you're giving up that first day of the week. Ain't nobody going to be celebrating first day of the week. His people will gather on the Shabbat. And you know what? Nobody will have to tell us because we're going to be of that higher level. It's just automatic. We become the teachers. We're going to teach other nations. We're going to teach other people. This is what you have to do. You mean there's going to be other people? Yeah, he didn't make the earth to be empty. He made the earth to be inhabited. It says that in Isaiah 46 chapter. He made the earth to be inhabited. So even if he destroyed, we know the seals and in the Revelation and the trumpets, and one of them, I forget which one it is, but 2/3 of the earth population is going to be wiped out. 2/3. You're going to have a remnant that's going to survive. Now, some people can't stomach what's going on right now. And they're working on your heartstrings. I don't even watch all the mainstream media news. I don't even watch it. I might catch a few stories here and I'm done. Because I can see a story on one news channel, I can go to another news channel, same story. I go to another news channel, same story. So it's all scripted. But they're trying to work on our heartstrings, and they're showing footage of people dead in the streets, all these dead bodies and everything. You ain't seen nothing yet. You better toughen up your heart. I said before, you've got to prepare your heart and ask the Most High and His only begotten Son and to increase your bandwidth in your heart for sorrow and grief, because it's coming. It's coming. That's why He said many people's hearts are going to fail them for fear. So I'm asking for some bandwidth here, because I know there's a lot of heartache coming. Heartache coming. Some folks dealing with heartache now. It's bad now. Adultery, fornication, uncleanness. And a lot of people think this is taking showers and not putting deodorant on, or not taking showers at all, no deodorant, and your body smelling and everything. He's not dealing with uncleanness here. You can be unclean by not keeping His word. That's uncleanness is things that are immoral, and immorality is taking our children. It's taking our children. I know some people don't like the governor in Florida. I realize that, and it's starting to spread. I think it's going to Ohio now, some other states. But he said, the governor in Florida says, you will not teach our children about same-sex or sex changes from kindergarten to third. He says, you will not. You ain't going to go into the school and teach our children that a boy can be a girl and a girl can be a boy and identify with your sexual. Why are you teaching kids about sex in kindergarten? First grade. Why are you teaching them about sex in first grade? Kindergarten. I mean, what happened to phonics and reading and math? Reading, writing, arithmetic. Oh no. They're trying to get the seeds into our children. The Republicans are fighting against it. The Democrat, this last one, I'm trying to think what it was because I read it today. And there was like, the Democrats offered like 1,000 amendments to this law, and they said, no, you're not passing that law. I think it was the state of Florida. I think it was. You're not passing that law. It was either Florida or one of the other states. Anyway, but they said, you're not passing that law. You're not teaching our kids about sex in kindergarten. You ain't doing that. I don't care what folks say. This is not I shouldn't say. I was going to say it's not a Christian nation. But it's a Christian nation out of the school of Rome. That's what they say. This is a Christian nation. You ain't no Christian nation. As wicked as these folks are, and anytime you stand up against stuff that is immoral, they want to shoot you down. You want to tell them that a man lying with a man is immoral, and they'll try to shut you down. You can't say that. Huh. All kind of immorality. Let your kids do whatever they want to do. That's what they're saying. parents can't even tell their kids, no, you ain't watching that on TV. If you tell your children, we ain't watching that on TV, not in this house, and they go to school and tell their teacher that they weren't allowed to watch Empire, and I've never seen an episode, so I don't know what's going on. I know some folks will miss church, or they'll record it so that when they got home from church, they watched it. I don't know, because I've never watched an episode. So if somebody asks me, well, you know what's going on in Empire? No, I don't. I've never watched an episode. And I'm so glad to say I have not watched an episode of Keeping Up with the Kardashians. Haven't watched an episode, and I'm so proud of it. All that junk, stuff that's immoral, that this beast system, he said that there's spiritual wickedness where? In high places. They make legislation. They'll watch out. They try to shut down businesses. They'll try to somebody said, they're going to shut you down, Hazel. You keep talking like that, they're going to shut you down. I don't care. Me and Yahusha's majority. If everybody turn and goes the other way, me and my Messiah, we're the majority. Why you say that? Because he's got the last word. You're either going to hear, well done, thou good and faithful servant, or you're going to hear, depart from me, I never knew you. You're going to hear one of them. So I know which one I want to hear. You had your hand up? Well, let's look at that. Go ahead and turn to that, Brother Nathan. Romans chapter 13, verse 1. 1 and 2. Okay, let every soul be subject unto the higher powers, for there is no power but of Yah. The powers that be are ordained of Yah. Now, this is in order for us to have a sense of civilness. You know, when you say we're civilized, when we say we're civilized, what are we saying? So, and to have a sense of civilness and civilization, what do they give us in our cities, our states, and our country? There's laws on the book that keeps us from being living in a place of helter-skelter, chaos. We have to be careful because they'll abuse this. So when I understand that these higher powers is for me to live civilly, I also understand that there's people who abuse that. And so I have to be careful. And anytime somebody that's a higher power tells me to do something against the Most High Yah, I ain't doing it. It's like Daniel. We got examples. I mean, we can go to the Bible. We got examples. Daniel and the Hebrew boys they were in Babylon. They weren't in their homeland. They were in Babylon. The king said, the first one was the diet. And they said, I'm sorry, we ain't eating that. And the chamberlain or the eunuch or whatever he was, if you guys don't eat this, the king's going to have my head. You know? And so Daniel says, well, let us keep our diet, lentils and everything, because they didn't eat a lot of meat. They ate meat at feasts and stuff, but they didn't eat a lot of meat. But let us keep our lentils and for a certain period of time, and we're not gonna eat the king's meat at their table. And let's just see how it looks after, 10 days, something, or a month or something. But after that time period, they were more healthy looking than the king. So there might be times where these higher powers will try to turn you against Yah, but that's not going to happen. I'm sorry. And I'm going to trust the Most High Yah. He's going to keep me. He's going to protect me. Just like, for example, for me, you're 501c3, you teach against homosexuality. They can come and get you and arrest you. Well, I'm going to teach against it and let the Most High handle it. So even though they might say it's lawful, just like they're trying to do in certain parts of the country, it's lawful for a man to lay with a man and a woman to lay with a woman. That's lawful. To me, I'm saying that's illegal according to this. So should I be subject to the higher power and allow that to happen in here? No. We'll shut this thing down. I'll shut this down before men come up in here as homosexuals and women come up in here as lesbians. There's some folks that's not welcome here. Get that word out. You're not welcome here. Leave these girls alone. You got some girls and women preying on girls. You're not welcome here. I'll shut this down before I let that stuff happen. So even though he sets them up there in order to govern so that we can be civil, but I'm not going to turn against the Most High Yah. So therefore, he resisted the power, resisted the ordinance of Yah. What were some of the ordinances of Yah? Thou shalt not steal. That's a part of our covenant. So we're sitting in a government rule that says, now, if you rob a bank, you're getting 25 years. 25 to life, because thou shalt not steal. So they got that from the Most. So I'm not in my land. I'm just sojourning over here, and your laws don't apply to me, so I can take yours and don't belong to me. Oh, no. Thou shalt not steal. So that's what he's dealing with here, because there's law. Do you know most of the laws of any governed nation comes from Israel? Look at all these nations that have laws and stuff. Most of them you'll find right in our book. That's where they get it from. So that's what he's saying here. Now, those ordinances comes from the Most High Yah. So if you resist that, he even says, thou shalt not kill, or thou shalt not do no murder. Now, you can go into the military, because he even had an army that he raised up in the wilderness, those young men, because they went into the promised land. That was not murder, because they were in the military to go and take out those people. That was not murder. Murder was when they went up against their brothers or those who sojourned in Israel. So if you had your brother or sojourners in Israel and you murdered one of them, then you're going against the ordinance. So our nation says, hey, you commit first-degree murder, second-degree murder, third-degree manslaughter. We got sentences for all that. Well, where did they get that from? Where did they get manslaughter from? Well, so if you resist that, you're resisting the ordinances of Yah. That's what he's dealing with here. Because he's writing to Rome, and Rome, you had a lot of those who were in Rome. They might not have been citizens in Rome, but they still had to follow those power that was ordained by Yah, which was his ordinances. For the rulers are not a terror for what? So if I'm doing good, why am I worried about it? Now, we still have to be careful, because even though you're doing good and you ain't doing no crimes, committing no crimes, you still have foolishness come on you and wickedness. Hey, I'm innocent. I didn't do no, I'm innocent. You know, even the minister of Yah for thee for good. You know, if you got somebody that just don't like you, and they're after you, and nowadays, you know, if people don't like you, I mean, you know, there's such a thin line between life and death. People kill you over foolishness. I mean, over nothing. Just over nothing. So do I want no police? I want to move to a city where there's no police force. I don't want to go there. No, keep a police force, because you got some folks that have no regard for the law. And I don't want to live Look what's going on in New York City. Y'all hear what goes on in New York City? I mean, you want them to get rid of all the police officers? I don't think so. And now they've got somebody in there that was a former police officer, and he's pretty hard, and you got folks don't like him. What, he was a former police chief or somebody, or a police chief or something. Now he's the mayor, and he's got some things about him that a lot of folks don't like. But if you're doing good, then you don't have to worry about that. But there is exceptions. So we have to understand there is exception. I ain't broke no law, but I can go outside and get in my car and drive home and stay on the speed limit, and I can get pulled over, and it could be my life. I didn't do nothing wrong. So I have to have this with an understanding too. I got to have it with an understanding. Now, that's why we should be praying daily. Yeah, my time, I'm running out of time. We should be praying daily. Did that answer your question? Okay, let's go back to Galatians 5:19, because we've got one more Bible class a week from today, and it's going to be a fast day again, 6A to 6P. And next Wednesday, we had those. I'm hoping we all fast 6A, 6P today, and you spend some time in meditation and prayer and examining yourself. Come the 15th, which is on a Friday, and you sit down to take of the lamb, which is the sacrifice for us, and then you take the unleavened bread and the cup. The unleavened bread means that you've actually got rid of all the leaven. Back to Galatians 5:19. So when you take of that unleavened bread, which represents the fact that was his body that knew no sin, then you've gone through your checklist. You've gone through your checklist, and I'm going to eat that unleavened bread not only on the Passover, the Pesach, but also for the next 7 days, all the way up to the 21st day. So from Friday the 15th all the way to Friday the 22nd, right? We're going to be eating unleavened bread. That's it, right? Friday do I have my days right? Yeah, the 15th is Passover, and then we'll eat unleavened bread on the Passover, and then unleavened bread all the way up to the 22nd. It should be a total of 8 days because you got to count Passover. That's why we read in Exodus, the 14th day you have unleavened bread, all the way up to the 21st day you have unleavened bread. So, but during that time, when you sit down to take of the body and the blood, and the lamb being our sacrifice, and then the body, the unleavened bread, and the blood, his life that was given. If you hadn't done this and taken some time to examine yourself, then you've done it unworthily. You've done it unworthily. If you find something in you, and we used to sing that song, if you find anything that shouldn't be, take it out, strengthen me. Oh, but that. Wait a minute, I found something. No, not that. Everything but that. Because at the end, when you're judged, it'll probably be one thing that you didn't give up that'll keep you out of the kingdom. Because he said in Hebrews, the 12th chapter, he says, lay aside every weight and the sin, not sins, the sin that does so easily beset you. So usually there's just, man, I've done I examined myself. But look at some of these things he said. He even said, some of these are some big ones. We see some big ones here, lasciviousness. This is just illegal lust. There's certain things we lust after. That's just not right. You got lust in your heart for wicked stuff. That's just not right. Lasciviousness is just, lust for things that are just immoral, just not right. Shouldn't be in us. Hatred, variance, emulations, wrath, strife. This is kind of a big one. Wrath and strife. You got folks get mad quick. You don't want to be on the wrong side of somebody's wrath. Somebody get angry and they wrath. And he says, let not the sun go down on your. So before you go to sleep at night, that stuff should be cleared up. Now Shaul did say, be angry and sin not. So what he's saying is that anger is a part of your emotion. We have those emotions in us, but I can't sin when I get angry. I'm mad at you, so I'm going to do this, this, and this. Oh, no. I can understand you being angry, but I don't understand you sinning. So you can't sin. Yes?
Can you say again what is variance?
What, variance? Yes. Okay, pull this one down, Brother Nathan. Variance. So let's go to, and it's in the Greek. So, but all of these Paul got from Torah. So just pull this one. You have to go up here to the Bibles and over here to, yeah, there you go. Compare and then variance. Okay. Of uncertain affinity, a quarrel, wrangling, contention, debate, strife is close to strife. Contention is called wrangling. So you've always got a contention going on. Always wrangling. You got some folks, they just speak just to have some kind of conflict.
Is that it's almost
Yeah,
argumentative?
it could be. It's close to that. Notice what it says, quarrel. You always got to quarrel. Why are you always quarreling with me? Why? Because notice it's kind of close to strife. Why do I feel that? Why can't we agree? Why can't we agree? So quarreling or wrangling you shouldn't constantly be in contention with one another. He even says in Proverbs, he gives us the Proverbs about being in the house with a brawling woman. He says, I'd rather be on the housetop than in a large room with a brawling woman. So, and that can go both ways. I mean, now a man should know better than this. Hey, I'm just not going to fight with you. I'm just not. Let's get over this. But I ain't going to fight with you. I'm not going to keep a debate going. Let's talk about it. Let's get it resolved, because I don't want to be quarreling with you to where it's just every day's a quarrel.
Why do you say a man should know that? A man should know that. Why do you say that?
Why do I say that? Because he is the responsible one. Okay. He's the head of the house. He's been given the head. And in Corinthians, I think it's the 11th chapter, he talks about the order of things. You got the Most High Yah, you got Christ, the Mashiach, you got the man, then you got the woman, then you got the children. So as parents, you're the cover of the children. The woman's covering is the man. The man's covering is the Messiah. Messiah's covering is the Most High Yah. He breaks that down for us. So as a covering, the man being the covering over the woman should, and it's kind of like being a mature thing. There got to be some level of maturity, because I'm just not going to keep wrangling with you. Now, it could be in a relationship as husband and wife, but it also could be brother and sister. I'm just not going to, and sometimes we say, let's just agree to disagree. There's just some things we're not going to agree on. So let's just agree with that. Let's not be angry. Let's not try to get even with recompense. We can't get along, so I'm a recompense. No, you can't do that. You can't do that. So the reason why I say for the man, he should know better, because he is the leader. He's the responsible one. He's the head. So if you have an immature man, that's doing this and you trying to keep peace, you got to understand, hey, you're my covering. So as a covering over me, you have to protect me. You're not protecting me. All you want to do is fight with me? You're not protecting me. You're not protecting this relationship. You're not protecting your home. You're exposing me. And that shouldn't be. Okay? So that's what variance is. All right, so we'll go over some of these other ones because time's getting late. Or is there some other ones you want to look at? Because we're getting kind of late here.
I'll look them up. I mean, like, how do you know, like, once you go, because this is like the first time we've had this kind of perspective where you're supposed to go through that way.
Yeah.
But, I mean, how do you know? I mean, like, you satisfy the expectation. I mean, how do you know you gotten rid of it?
Yeah. How do you know when it's gone?
Yeah, how do you know? I mean, like, you went through the list and you see whatever. Okay, I see this or I see that. I mean, like.
So a tree is known by what? So he goes down here. After he goes through all that and says those things won't inherit the kingdom, then he says, okay, let me show you what the fruit of the Ruach is. So if I've got love, joy, peace, long-suffering, gentleness, goodness, faith, meekness, temperance, against such there's no law, if I have that fruit, I'm overcoming all of those. I overcome the works of the flesh if I'm bearing fruit. I overcome that. So everything that we read from 19 to 21, if you are bearing the fruit of the Spirit, you're overcoming those things. Now, I know some of these things should be easy. I'm not going to practice witchcraft. I'm not going to do it. Hatred, I got to get over that. Now, maybe variance. But if I'm bearing the fruit, I know that love, if I have love, love covers the multitude of. So that's a fruit that I'm bearing. Joy. So when you're dealing with seditions, heresies, envies, murder, hey, if I got some joy here, you're dealing with drunkenness. Why are you drunk? See, a lot of times we want to really get on people for uncontrollable and they're drunkards and stuff, but why? Do we actually get to why? Because if you never get to why, then this person who's a drunkenness here, then he'll be drunk with something else. Because you never dealt with the why or the hurt. You have some kids that experience such trauma in their lives real young, then when they get older, then they hide behind this. Oh, you're going to hell. Cut all that. You're going to hell. But you never address why. Let's deal with why. Where was that trauma? Why do you do it? Does it take you back to some child? And I'm just throwing this out there because a lot of times we don't deal with the reasons why. Why are you envy? Why is there envy? And some of the other ones. But if you're bearing the fruit here, now some of us, when I think of the goodness of Yahweh, I get joy. When I think about how He brought me, I get joy, the type of life I'm living, and I get joy because I know where I'm going. I don't need all this. There's stuff I don't need because I'm bearing that fruit. So when you know that, okay, I've identified something, now how do I know when I'm over that? It's when you're bearing the fruit. Because a tree is known by the fruit it bears. If you're bearing all 9 fruit, you'll conquer all those, the works of the flesh. That's why He said there's no law against that now. So if I'm bearing all the 9 fruit, then I'm going to overcome. This is what we have to. He even talks about love, and in the 1 Corinthians 13 chapter, we don't have to go there, but he talks about love, joy, faith. But the greatest of these is, he says, charity. I say love, but he says charity. Charity's greater than, faith is a fruit, but he says charity is even greater than faith. So if I got charity or love, man, I can overcome a lot of those. Just with that. Problem is we don't have a lot of love in the church. We got more hatred and envy and murders. We got more of that than we do. And then revelings, and I got this mixed up. I hope I did straighten that out, because we were dealing with reviling, those who were reviled before him. And then I said that was that partying spirit. But this is, revelings is that partying spirit. Party over here, party at my house. You're partying every weekend, going to a party, party. Well, that's not going to inherit the kingdom. And our young people love to party. That's not going to inherit the kingdom. So with that, we're going to finish up here tonight. Certainly, thank you for joining us, those who are joining us online. And we invite you back. We have a baptism on the Shabbat coming up. Pray that y'all will be here for our baptism as we prepare for Passover. There'll be we'll have Pesach or Shabbat this Shabbat, and then a Bible class, and then we're ready. We'll be ready. And that's why Shaul said with the Corinthians, he says, I want to present you as a chaste, what? Chaste virgin, to who? To Christ, to the Mashiach. That's what his prayer was for the Corinthians. And Corinthians had a lot of problems. So he says, I want to present you as a chaste virgin to Christ. And so there's a lot of things we have to deal with, but we've got another Bible class. We're going through this fasting, this prayer examination, and so we'll all be ready. If you don't take of it, you're cut off. If you take of it unworthily, you're going to die. So you're in that place where I better do right. I just have to do right. Because when you use the law of first mention, you go back to the Passover, and we didn't really get into, didn't have enough time, but when Stephen preached in the 7th chapter of Acts, he talked about, even though they were brought out of Egypt, where was their heart? Their heart was still in Egypt. And he dealt with that in the 7th chapter of Acts. So even though they were brought out, in their heart, they had went back into Egypt. So when we have Mashiach, Christ, as our Passover, he is he said he is. It's present tense, he is. Our Passover, he sacrificed for us. So he's got to bring us out of Egypt. He's got to bring us out of that bondage. And once he brings us out, he didn't bring us out so that we could go back. And that's why Shaul said in Galatians, the 2nd chapter, I think it's 16th verse, he says, if I build again the things that I destroyed, what do? I make myself a transgressor. I dealt with that. I got over that. I put it away. Now, if you go back to it, well, you make yourself a transgressor. You're just transgressor all over again. And we can't keep transgressing and expect to be in the kingdom. We got to get to that place where we've matured to where I'm not going to transgress. I can. Hey, I can. I know I can. That's why Shaul says, he that standeth, take heed, what? Lest he fall. Don't get puffed up with pride. Oh, I can't sin. You better watch out. You'll probably sin when you walk out of here. Don't get puffed up like that. He said, he that standeth, take heed, lest he fall. So I got to get to the place where, I can commit sin in this body, but I'm not going to. I'm not going to do that. I'm going to put it away. I'm going to put it away so that I can inherit. I want to be in that kingdom. Today, we have no excuse. They ain't going, I missed it. No, give me another chance. No, I've given you plenty of opportunity, to make your calling and your election sure. None of us are going to have an excuse if we miss it. We're not going to have no excuse. So we invite you back out on the Shabbat, and we'll be here. Another Bible class before we take of the body, and our lamb, sacrificial lamb, it's a memorial unto us. We're going to do that on the 15th. And then from the 16th to 21st, or the 22nd of this Roman Greco calendar month, but it's actually the 15th day to the 21st day on the Hebrew calendar of the new year, we'll be eating unleavened bread. Okay? With that, I'm going to say shalom, good night. Thank you all for being here. And we'll see you on the Shabbat. So, shalom.